Welcome back, everyone. It's time to finish up our project with part 3. In this part, we're going to be graphing our equation on Desmos, modeling our income and expenses as a line or piecewise function, as well as including a horizontal line for our goal so that we can calculate the time t it takes to reach our goal. Other than that, we're just going to be cleaning up a few little details of our graph inside of Sheets if we need to, so that we can have a clear presentation. Let's get into it. All right, we're back here in my project, and I'm going to go over my fixed salary first, since it's going to be the easier situation. Now, of course, this is whether you're working now or whether you've researched an income you'll make, say, over the summer or when you turn a certain age, assuming you're going to be working the same number of hours and that your expenses are relatively similar from month to month. So assuming we've already made this graph, all we're going to do is we're going to go to Desmos. Now, not the testing Desmos. This is the only time I'll ask you to use the Desmos graphing calculator that's not the state test version, because we need a little bit more functionality than is in the state test version. But don't worry, you won't have to do any budgeting on the state test, and you won't have to use the state test version to budget when you're an adult. So let's just go to desmos.com-calculator. I've provided the link in the project. Before you proceed, I'd highly recommend you log in. So I'm going to sign in with my Google account. And you should see your name down here. If you don't sign in, 1, it won't be saved, and 2, you won't have the option to share your graph. Okay, so you can copy this link and share it with me, as well as embed it into your spreadsheet, which we'll need to do later. Let's think about what we need to graph. First, we need to graph our goal. My goal was to save up for a $5,000 car. Okay, so I'm going to say the cost of my car, we'll use C for my car, after any amount of time is just $5,000. We're going to assume there's no inflation and the car will remain its steady value approximately until I'm able to afford it. I don't see my graph. No, I guess I should have kept myself moved over here. Zoom, I'm moving. See this graph settings? We're going to have to adjust some things, because right now I see from 0 to 6, and I'm looking to save $5,000, which is more than 6. Believe it or not. So we're gonna have to go into our graph settings, and let's talk about the ratchet way first. If we feel like being ratchet, we could just zoom out a whole bunch until we can see that. There we go. There's my graph. Perfect. This looks great. It doesn't. So if we want a little bit more precise setup, let's go into the graph settings. I've moved myself so many times. For the x-axis, that's how far we need to go. Well, I don't plan on spending 40,000 months to get there, since I'll probably be dead by then. And if we go back to our graph in here, you actually see it's only going to take me 3 months. So we don't need our x's to be very big, because our x is our time. And for me, it's only going to take me 3 months. Yours is going to be different, but that's why we already made this. So you could literally just count 1, 2, 3. I'm going to set it just a little bit more than 3. I'm going to set it to 4. So the max is 4. And my x-axis minimum, I'm going to set to negative 0.5. Why did you choose those, Mr. B? Because I need to be able to see my origin so I can actually read my axis. And if you choose to, you can choose to step by, because right now this is increments of 0.2 months, which is not terribly useful. Let's just go by 1 month, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Does that look pretty good in terms of months? Because I'm only going to need 3 of them. All right. Now my y-axis is a sloppy mess, because I'm only saving up $5,000. I don't need $20,000, and I certainly hope I'm not getting to negative $20,000. So let's change my y-axis a bit. In fact, I hope I don't have much in the negatives at all, ever. So we don't need to see much of the negatives, and we'll talk a little bit more about how I decided on negative 0.5 after I set my maximum y. Well, I'm only saving up to 5,000, so I'm going to set this just beyond 5,000. Why didn't I set it to 5,000? Because if I set it to exactly 5,000, you could just barely see that little red line at the top of the screen. But if I set it just over 5,000, hey, now I can see where my y value that I'm trying to save up to is. Let's go from negative $500. Why did you choose negative 500, Mr. B? Because I need to be able to see my x-axis. If I chose 0, just like before, I can't see this axis, right? So I can't read my axis, and I can't see my origin, which is presumably my starting point. All right, so the reason I didn't shows negative 500 over here, I didn't shows negative 500 over here, because I don't need that much in the negatives. We're not going back in time until before I was born. So I only need to go back in time a little bit because the maximum is only 3 that I'm looking for. So my minimum shouldn't be that much. They're relatively scaled together. So big numbers, little numbers. Makes sense? Just make sure you can see your axes. If I actually wanted a little bit less of this, I could probably go to like 0.25. There we go. So it's all symmetrical, which makes my OCD happy. But that's minutia. That doesn't really matter. As long as you can see the labels on your axes and you can see your origin, you gravy. Are we done, Mr. B? No, that's my goal. I need to get to my goal. How am I going to get to my goal? Well, I'm going to get some money over time. How much money am I getting? Well, that depends. In my first scenario, this is relatively easy. I'm making this much, I'm spending this much, and it's the same every month. So I'm saving the same amount every month. But this number's going up. Yeah, I would hope that my amount saved is going up. But how much is going up by? Well, each month, it's increasing by 3,600 minus 1,800. So we could do this one of 2 ways, okay? This brain dead way, we're making this much money, okay? So we're going to get some money. So we're going to get money equal to $3,600 a month. But wait, I got to pay some of that, okay? And expenses, we got expensive stuffs. So how much am I paying in expenses? $1,800 every month. So instead of just getting this much money, we now have to subtract the amount I'm spending. Just once? No, every month. I'm spending it every month. So times T. And as we can see over here, sorry, I'm going to be moving myself a lot today. Whoa! As we can see, I'll reach my goal in just before 3 months. So now we're almost done, basically. Quick maths, 2 plus 2 is 4, and 36 minus 1,800 is 1,800. If you don't believe me, there you go. They're the same graph, right? Because we just combined like terms. All right, you can do that. The times when you won't be able to do that is when we talk about odd jobs. Odd jobs are going to be weird. So sorry if you're working odd jobs, but it be like that sometimes. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. My goal is to model my data in Desmos. My first sub bullet point was to represent my goal with a horizontal line. Did I do that? Yeah, it's right here, my goal. You can call that goal over time if you want, instead of just the cost. It don't matter. So this function notation is just to tell us what we're talking about. This is how much money I got. This is my goal. And those both presumably might change over time. Second goal was to write an equation or equations, pluralized, that show your progress towards your goal over time. So if you had a piecewise function, you might have to do some magic wizardry here. But for now, this is all we really need. Okay, so we have one equation because we have a consistent income and consistent expenses. So we did show our progress towards our goal over time. And then solve for the time it will take you to reach your goal. Boop. I booped it. That's the time. So in 2.778 months, I will have $5,000. So I will reach my goal in just under 3 months. All right, and then you need to, last step, important step, share this with Mr. B. See this little share graph button? We're going to click that, going to copy that, and we're going to put our Desmos graph here. If you're not familiar with this, you can just paste it here and be ratchet. If you would like to be fancy, you can hit Control K. Control K will embed a link like I do in my assignments so you can be fancy. And then just paste it there. And that way those words are that graph. Oh my gosh. Either one of those is fine. You don't have to be fancy if you don't want to. And then I'd like you to just, in case you done flubbed it up, just go ahead and take a snip-snap screenshot of your graph. I should probably make sure I include that point too. That way I can see that you solved for your time. And we'll paste that graph in here alongside our original graph. Oh, that's very big. That's smaller. All right, looks good. So did I do my things? I represented my goal with a horizontal line. I wrote an equation or equations that would represent my savings over time. And then I solved for the amount of time here, 2.778 months. So let's write that. Time it will take to reach my goal. 2.778 months. Do include your units there. If you're saving for years, that's a lot different than saving for months. Okay. And I've shared this with Mr. B by including this link here. Okay. Now, the last part of this project that's due this Thursday would be to clean up anything. So let's pretend here in a world where I was careless They're good to go. Okay, I'm done. Well, 20 points is for your presentation. You don't actually need some of these lines, right? Like we don't need to see your income and expenses, just how much you're saving. So we can remove those with the setup and just take off income and expenses, remove those series. So we only see the total and the goal. All right, I'm done, Mr. B. You put a title on your graph. This doesn't have a title, so it needs a title. You probably need a title. All right, so chart and axis title. So call it something like saving for a Civic. I'm done, Mr. B. Are you though? Is that really appropriate? Come on, just like a little bit more effort here. Center that so it looks pretty. Maybe make it bold instead of gray. How about that? Pop it out a little bit with like blue, like your Civic is. Okay, so that would be the formatting, just the last minute things. Make sure your months are clear. In my second example, I would want to make sure I have my year. If I have January and January, I need to know which January that is. Don't have your months spelled wrong or not capitalized. We want this to look professional, okay? So that's just the last 20 points, not as big as the 100 points for being able to model this with a series of lines and solve for the amount of time t. But I am still going to give you 20 points for your graph looking professional. All right, time for example number 2. Let's talk about odd jobs. This is going to be a little bit more rough because we need to model a inconsistent income with an equation or several equations. So here's the thing. We earn different amounts of money, right? Like I see a 300, 280, 200, 380, 440, 380, 380, 410, 410. Okay, so it's different every month. So we need to know how this is all going to be added together, and it does repeat each year, right? So in January, February, each year I'm making less money. You can see January, February, 180, and then babysitting is consistent. The good news is babysitting is consistent. So we're making $200 a month from babysitting all the time. I think I'm going to do side to side here. Okay, and I want to be able to see my babysitting, my shoveling drives, my lawn mowing, all my sources of income. Okay, this one, my goal is still the Civic. So my goal over time is still going to be the same, $5,000. All right, before we attack the formulas, let's go ahead and set up our graph. We know we're going to go to $5,000, and this is going to take us, if you're not sure how you can count cells, if you highlight them all. So click one that you start at, click the other where you get to your goal, and down here it'll show you the count. That's how many there are. So there are 24 cells or 24 months that I need to span. So I'm going slightly like before, from let's say -2 months to 26 months. So a little bit past our goal and a little bit before we start, so we can see that axis. Y-axis, we're going to 5,000. So again, we're going to go 1,000 over and 500 under. So we should be able to see our goal, and we're going to get there within 2 years or 24 months. It will be just over our goal in actually 23 months. It's 2 ways of doing this. We're going to approximate this as a line. Okay, so I'm going to look at each year. All right, so let's average each year's lawn mowing income. All right, so I'm gonna move this down a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna find the average income each month lawn mowing. Well, how do I do that? Well, let's just find equals average of from here to here. Now here's the issue. It says 176. It's not accounting for these months where we make $0. So we need to put $0 in these months where we earn 0. That way we'll actually get the average. So the average we make each month from lawn mowing is $118. So our total income or our money after months T is going to be, we're making 118 times each month that we're mowing lawns on average. Okay, obviously this is not true for the months where we make nothing mowing lawns. And then this one's easy. Okay, babysitting. What's the average of 200 and 200 and 200 and 2? It's 200. If you wanted to, you could put average of 200, but it's 200. Okay, so each month we're making on average $200 babysitting. And again, I'm multiplying these by T because it's each month. If I just put plus 200, well, I'm going to start at 200, but I'm never going to make money from that again. If I got rid of this T, I am not making money. I just have $318. So I'm making that much each month. So we need to multiply the income by each month because we make it per month. That's how unit rates work. And then finally, shoveling drives. So let's do the same thing. Average income shoveling. It's going to be equal to the average of, and then we're going to highlight those cells from January to December. And we need to fill in the months that we didn't before with zeros, so that we can actually find the average and it's not going to miscalculate based on empty cells. $30. So each month we're also making 30 from shoveling. All right, now that's not obviously going to get us to our goal in 14 months, right? That's not what we found. It was 22 months. So something went wrong. Well, we didn't take into account our expenses. For our expenses, we're spending on average $120 each month. So we're spending, that means we're losing $120 each month. Now our graph looks more appropriate and we get to our goal in 22 months. Didn't have to guess or scroll left and right and count. I could just obviously solve for the number of months t. So let's take another screenshot. Again, in case for whatever reason your link breaks, you can take a screenshot from Mr. B so that he can see your work. Now, this Sheets graph is more realistic, right? Because you can see the months where we're not making money, whereas we're approximating it as a linear function with our Desmos graph. And of course, we're going to have to shrink that. So let's go ahead and shrink that now. Just going to line it up with my previous graph so it's the same size. All right, and I need a link to my sheet. So let's go back over to my graph. I need to share that link with Mr. B. So up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll find the share graph. I'm going to copy that link. Come back over to my project, and I can either just paste the link here, or I can type something like, Mr. B, hey, here's the link to Desmos. Hit Control and K, and then paste the link there, Control V. And that way, that text is hyperlinked. So that'll take me to the graph. And then we solve for time t. It will take us 21.93 months. Time to save $5,000 with our odd jobs is 21.93, include your units, months. All right, and we do have a nicely organized graph. Again, I'm stressing that you want to be able to read your axes. So these are all capitalized and they include the year, since we're not just going to get to it in October, but I'm getting there in October 2024. Obviously, this October, we are not going to have more than about $2,400. And in both scenarios, obviously November, December were not included in this graph since we didn't actually need them to reach our goal. We're getting there in just under 22 months. Again, this is more accurate because we're not approximating it as a line, but this would allow us to solve for the time where, let's say we're saving up for a house. Well, it's going to be a lot more money. Well, we could just set our goal to a different number and extend that rather than making a giant table in Sheets going years and years down. So we can then find when we would hit that house. Also, this axis would look miserable. So this is very good when we're scaling things up. That's part of the reason we use a linear function or a linear approximation to model data, is that we can calculate it even over a longer period of time. So we represented our goal with a horizontal line. We wrote an equation. Here we used one equation. We could have wrote it as the sum of several equations if you chose to. We just accounted for the three different things as the positive values here, and then the expenses as the negative value. So my income from lawn mowing, my income from babysitting, and my income from raking leaves, and then my expenses. My expenses were negative because we're losing that money every month. Okay, please don't just make these numbers up. I would like to see where they came from. It can either be in a statement, like I did with my account, where you see exactly how much I'm making and how much I'm paying, or you can do your research and show me how many hours a week. So if you're making $13 an hour, how many hours a week are you working? And then how many weeks are there in a month? So now you can see your total monthly income, and don't just make up a number for expenses. Please find your real expenses. If you don't have a credit card or a debit card that could show you that easily, then I'd like you to break that down. Show me where you're spending your money. If it's on food, snacks, recreation, like going to the movies, hair, video games, I want to see your real expenses. Okay, don't be like, I spend no money. You do, but you're a teenager. It's okay. I've been there, done that. Got the t-shirt. I spent too much on the t-shirt because it got a hot topic because I was a dumb teenager. It happens. Okay, happens to all of us. But there are the expenses. All right, and we shared our spreadsheet with Mr. V. Important, do that. Make sure you do that. You don't have to take the screenshot if you share the spreadsheet, but hey, taking the screenshot, make sure if this link is broken or you didn't paste it as a link or whatever went wrong, hey, you've got evidence that you actually did the work. And if stuff hits the wall, you're not losing 100 points because you lost your graph, okay? And then we made sure that our graph was titled properly, that it had good axes, and that it was professional looking and legible. So we should be good for the full 120 points. Hopefully this has been helpful, and now that you've seen how to, you can come up with your own budget, as well as calculate the amount of time it would take you to save up for this and any other goal with that current income structure. Obviously, if that's not something that you'd be happy with, say it's taking you 4 or 5 years to save up for your goal, you need to do one of a few things. If you're trying to afford a $25,000 car working 18 hours a day, it's going to take you until you're done with college to save up for that car. You might want a cheaper car. There are other things you could do. If you find that you're spending almost everything you're making, you can lower your expenses. So if you're spending $150 a month on installing hair, you might want to instead be the person who installs hair. That could also increase your income. So if you want to change the amount of time it's going to take you to save up, you could either change your target, so get something cheaper. And not everyone's going to move into a mansion as their first house. You might want a starter home. Same with the starter car. You can decrease your expenses or you can increase your income. You can work a job 18 hours a week and then also work odd jobs. That is legal. So if you want a side hustle, a legal side hustle, that certainly could boost your income. You can babysit, you can do other odd jobs around the house, or yard work for other people is a really good way to make money on the low. All right. Hopefully this has been helpful and has real life applications. Thank you so much for joining me in this endeavor. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.